When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away the things of a child. We see now through a glass in a dark manner, but then face to face, now I know in part, but then I shall know, even as I am known. Way up in the Cordillera Mountains of the Philippines on the island of Luzon, there's a place called the Mountain Province. It is the home of my indigenous Igorot ancestors who for more than 300 years successfully resisted Spain's attempts to colonize us. It's where I was born, and it's where I was baptized into the Catholic faith. More importantly, it's the fertile grounds of my natural and supernatural roots. Unfortunately, for most of my life I knew little about my natural Igorot roots, and I only knew the Catholic faith that evolved after its reformulation during what was called the Second Vatican Council, or Vatican II. Later in my adulthood, however, I made the conscious decision to connect to my natural and supernatural roots. By connecting to my Igorot roots, I've come to learn so many things about my culture, my ancestors, and quite frankly, who I am. Above all, I've come to learn that the most important part of this connection is connecting with my ancestors' virtues and values, which happens to be entrenched in the natural law. The natural law is the fertile seed of reason that allows the seeds of virtue to grow. When I connect to my ancestors' roots, I connect only to those that are good and pleasing to God, and I reject everything that displeases Him, particularly paganism and the practices that violate the sanctity of life. When I allow reason to be enlightened by my Catholic faith, I actually start to realize how many of the virtues of my ancestors actually coincide with the 64 Catholic virtues. By connecting to my Catholic faith, however, I'm able to see in a much clearer way all the bad fruits that exist in the Catholic Church today. All these bad fruits that began infiltrating the church in the 1800s and accelerated after the reformulation of Catholicism in the 60s in what was known as the Second Vatican Council.
The Catholic Church in the United States is in danger of losing a whole generation of Catholics.
Tomorrow is the third anniversary of a landmark grand jury report that found Catholic Church leaders in Pennsylvania covered up rampant sexual abuse involving hundreds of priests and at least 1,000 victims. 13 states and Washington, D.C. have since made it easier for victims to file civil suits. But in Pennsylvania,
since 1965, the number of Catholic seminarians in the USA has dropped 90%. This enormous priest shortage is showing with the closing of thousands of USA parishes since 1990.
A new report from the Pew Research Center shows that the percentage of Americans...
Only 10% of Catholics under the age of 30, they go to Mass regularly.
Only 50% of the priests that she had in 1970.
7 in 10 Catholics, 69%, believe the consecrated bread and wine at Mass are merely symbols of the body and blood of Christ. Only 1/3 believe it to be the actual body and blood of Jesus as taught by Catholic teachers.
Before 1963, most exorcists that lived before, that were performing exorcisms before 1963 and after 1963 said that the average time before 1963 to liberate someone from possession was 1 to 2 days. On the outside, maybe 7 days. Overnight, in 1963, they said it was like a switch that happened, and so what happened is that the time it took to liberate people from 1 to 2 days went to 10 months to 2 years, overnight. There was a shift that happened that cases that were normally taking 10 months to 2 years are now almost indefinite. And that actually tells you something, because the state of the church is actually part of the problem. So the worse the state of the church is, the longer it takes to liberate people.
For me, however, the most problematic and concerning of all bad fruits that exist today in the Catholic Church is the overt display of paganism that took place in the Vatican in 2019. My mother, who was the first Catholic in her family and converted her father, who was a pagan shaman, if she had seen the paganism going on these days, it would make her cry. I connect to my Catholic roots, to my supernatural roots. Why? Mainly because of salvation. But also, I don't want to be part of a church that is in decline. I don't want to be involved in all these bad fruits that we see today. I don't want to be part of a church that continues to go down this road of worldliness. You see, I want to embrace the sacred. I want to cling unto the deposit of faith that Christ left us until his second coming. And the best way to do this is to connect to the church's ancient, traditional liturgy known as the Mass of Ages, also known as the traditional Latin Mass. The recent and ongoing attempts to suppress it and ultimately get rid of it or abolish it is a direct affront to God. You see, no pope, no bishop, no priest will keep me from connecting to my Catholic roots. I will resist all attempts to disconnect me from my roots, my supernatural roots. And I'll do this, number one, through penance and offering up sacrifices, but more importantly, through prayer. And the greatest prayer that we have is the source and summit of Holy Mother Church, the Mass of Ages.